When I first met David, I never imagined our marriage would lead me into the kind of situation that would test not only my loyalty but also my understanding of love, ambition, and temptation. David and I had been married for 8 years, and during that time, we built a life together that many people envied. We had a cozy suburban home in Ohio, 2 golden retrievers who treated us like family, and dreams that seemed within reach. David was an ambitious man, and his career in corporate finance meant the world to him. He worked tirelessly, often late into the night, chasing promotions and recognition that he believed would give us a better life. I was proud of him, but I also saw the toll it took. He carried his stress like a heavy coat, rarely taking it off even at home. Sometimes I longed for the carefree man I fell in love with in college, the one who would take me on spontaneous road trips or dance with me in the kitchen. That man was still there, but he was buried beneath spreadsheets, endless phone calls, and the constant need to prove himself. Things began to change when David told me about his boss, Richard Wallace. Richard was the senior vice president of David's firm, a man who carried himself with effortless authority. He was in his mid-50s, sharply dressed, and known for his intimidating presence. People whispered about him in the office, both out of fear and respect. David often described Richard as brilliant but ruthless, a man who could make or break someone's career with a single decision. At first, I didn't think much of it when David mentioned that Richard had asked about me. He had apparently seen a photo of us together at the company holiday party. David said Richard had commented that I looked graceful and poised. I laughed it off, telling David that bosses often said things like that to curry favor or make small talk. But something in David's eyes unsettled me. He looked both flattered and worried, as if Richard's interest wasn't entirely casual. The first time I met Richard in person was at a charity gala hosted by the company. David insisted I attend because it was important to make an impression. I remember walking into that grand ballroom, the chandeliers glittering overhead, the sound of laughter and clinking glasses filling the air. Richard spotted us almost immediately. He walked over, tall and commanding, with a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "So this is the famous Emily," he said, extending his hand to me. His grip was firm, his gaze steady. "David has told me so much about you." I smiled politely, trying to mask the unease creeping into my chest. "All good things, I hope." "Of course," Richard replied, his voice smooth. "He's very lucky." Throughout the evening, Richard's attention lingered on me more than I was comfortable with. He asked me about my interests, my background, even my thoughts on current events. He was charming, articulate, and undeniably intelligent. But beneath that polished exterior was something else, an intensity that made me feel like I was being studied, evaluated, as if I were more than just David's wife. On the drive home, I mentioned it to David. He brushed it off, saying Richard was like that with everyone. "He's just trying to get to know people," David said. But I could tell he didn't fully believe his own words. Weeks later, the situation escalated. David came home one evening looking pale, his usual confidence replaced with worry. He sat me down at the kitchen table and said, "Emily, I need to tell you something, and I don't know how you're going to react." My heart sank. "What is it?" "It's Richard," he said, rubbing his temples. "He made a proposal." I frowned. "What kind of proposal?" David hesitated, then exhaled sharply. "He wants to spend time with you. Alone." He said if you agreed, it could change everything for me at the company. He hinted at a major promotion, one that could set us up financially for years. The words hit me like a punch to the chest. For a moment, I couldn't even process them. "You mean, he wants me?" David nodded, shame clouding his face. I told him it was insane, that I'd never even bring it up with you. But then he implied that if I refused, it could hurt my career. "Emily, this promotion, it's the chance I've been waiting for. But I would never ask you to do something you're not comfortable with." I didn't know how to handle it. I stared at him, my mind racing. Part of me was furious, how dare Richard put us in this position? Another part of me was deeply hurt. Did David even consider it, even for a moment? "David," I whispered, "do you realize what he's asking? He's trying to use me like a bargaining chip. That's not just inappropriate, it's disgusting." "I know," David said quickly. I told him no, but he made it clear that this wasn't just a suggestion. "Emily, I'm scared. I've worked so hard, and now it feels like everything is hanging by a thread." That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay awake replaying the conversation in my mind, anger boiling inside me. But there was also something else I didn't want to admit aloud, Richard's boldness had left me shaken. He was powerful, influential, and used to getting what he wanted. A small, unsettling voice in my head wondered what it would even mean if I agreed. Would it really guarantee David's success? Would it destroy our marriage? The next few weeks were a blur of tension. David avoided bringing up Richard, but the silence spoke volumes. Then, one afternoon, Richard called me directly. Hearing his voice on the other end of the line made my stomach twist. "Emily," he said smoothly, "I apologize for reaching out to you personally, but I thought it might be best if we spoke directly. I want you to know that my interest in you is genuine. This isn't about business, it's about admiration. You're remarkable, and I don't say that lightly." I gripped the phone tightly. "Mr. Wallace, with all due respect, this is inappropriate. I'm married to your employee." "I respect that," he replied calmly. "But I also believe in opportunities. Sometimes life presents us with choices that are uncomfortable but transformative. I don't expect an answer right away. Just consider it." I hung up, my hands trembling. When I told David, he was livid, but also terrified. "If you reject him outright, he might retaliate," David said. "But if you play along, maybe we can buy some time." And so began the most difficult chapter of my life, a dangerous balancing act between protecting my marriage, resisting temptation, and standing up against a man who thought his power entitled him to everything, even me.